earned millions of dollars on his brand in college as a college athlete in ways that he couldn't, say, 5 years ago. So I think that gives us sort of a really enticing ball to throw, pun very much intended, at young men who are interested in sports. There's that. But Mark, what I think is also important is that it's hard to aspire to something that you haven't seen. As you know, you and I have been homies a long time, dear friends, as a matter of fact. I didn't grow up with a lot of college educated men around me. Very, very few, as a matter of fact. So for me, not having met very many men who went to college, it was hard to aspire to that. So part of it has to also be introducing young men to men who are in a range of professions, and their college degrees help them get there.
So all of that makes sense to me. I think the thing that surprises me is the HBCU piece of this, because I don't know, I would think that we'd be overrepresented there, because that's where we do have the examples. That's where we do have the faculty. That's where we do have the people that look like us. That's where we,
Well, we got to get the guys there. That's the challenge, right? We got to get them there.
Gotcha.
So, Mark, my first grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in 2019 funded some work around HBCU enrollments. And one of the things that I discovered is that Black folks, women, men, and genderqueer, were indeed applying to HBCUs. What I also discovered is that HBCUs were actually accepting them. Many HBCUs have long prided themselves, including the one that I graduated from, Albany State in Albany, Georgia, right? HBCUs have long prided themselves on providing access to folks, as opposed to denying a lot of folks. They've never hung their hat on sort of, we're excellent by the number of people we reject, yeah. Right? So the acceptance rates are beautifully high at HBCUs. Where it all falls apart, Mark, is in yield. The yield numbers are atrocious. They for instance, I'll give you
just for the audience's benefit. When we say yield, we're saying that 10,000 people apply. I'm just picking an arbitrary number. 10,000 people apply.
Yes.
Let's say they admit 5,000 of them.
Yes.
That's the acceptance rate. But the yield of that, if only 1,000 come, that's the yield.
Exactly. So let's take Clark Atlanta, for example. Last year, Clark Atlanta University received 27,672 applications. That's a lot of applications. That's pretty good. I like that. They admitted 65% of the people who applied. That's a reasonably high acceptance rate. I like that. Only 6% of the people that they accepted ultimately enrolled at Clark. That I don't like.
And what's happening between acceptance and yield?
They're low for everybody. They're low across all genders, but they tend to be even lower among men.
When we look at the data more closely, and I don't know if we're there yet in terms of the research, because I don't know the field, but is it that people are applying with no intention of attending the application? Is it, or are they applying and going somewhere completely different?
Look, it's a cocktail of explanations. Let's acknowledge that some folks are really, really brilliant, including most of the folks who apply to these schools. So they're brilliant, right? And they have multiple options. Sure, I'll go with that. That's one part of it. But 6% though, like 94% of them are gonna go somewhere else. I'm not sure about that. So I think that what ends up happening is there is an affordability problem. People actually want to go to school.
Okay.
They're applying because they want to go to school. They're not just applying just for kicks. They actually want to go to school. But figuring out how to afford it becomes a challenge. The elimination of the United States Department of Education will certainly exacerbate and worsen that challenge, right? So that's part of it. Affordability is a part of it. I think another part of it, if we're being, look, I'm be completely honest. HBCUs often don't have the technological resources and infrastructure that it requires to do yield well. For 5 years, I worked as an admissions officer in graduate admissions, and I know how important yield is. I mean, listen, that's the bottom line right there, right? Like, you do all this recruiting, all this admitting, all this stuff, but you actually got to get people to say, yeah, I'm coming. And
I want to stop it right there. Go ahead, get the conversation started. Then we, you know how we do, we get back in. Welcome to Breakdown Friday. Joseph Ward, Patrick Irvin, Professor Carl Tone Jones, and y'all asked for it. We got comments, we got emails, we got all type of various ways that people reached out and said that they want a part 2 of us talking about black men not going to HBCUs. I guess y'all like what we be talking about, man. PC Pat, they like what we be talking about, man. So it's all good. So we're giving y'all a part 2, and this time, like we said, we have a more educated conversation overall as far as the people who we're reacting to. Mark Lamont Hill, I forgot the gentleman's name, but they both work in college realms and academia. So we have a more of an educated conversation overall, especially on the end of what we're reacting to. And so, of course, it shifts the conversation a bit, but the surface, I mean, what the foundation of it is, black men are not going to college. And the internet is saying black men are not capable of going to college. Black men don't want to go to college. Black men want to be bums. All the negative things that you could think about. That's what the internet is saying. But that's why we're having this conversation, so we can actually give it some real authentic legs with real thought, with real conversation, with real information and statistics. But you ought to know, before you do that, before we get into it, deep into it rather, make sure you like this video, comment, subscribe, share this video, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. And remember, if you don't like this video, you ain't African American. You don't like black people if you don't like this video. And if you don't share this video, comment, you don't like black people. That's what Joe Biden told me to tell y'all, right? So college is a place where they keep telling us our lives can change, but for some reason they can't attract black men. So I want to start with one of the first things that they were talking about is black men need examples. So if you can give black men more examples of black men or successful black men in college or after college, if they can see them more, then they believe that black men will go to college more. I live in a college town. Excuse me. I live in a college town and I work in the community. And I don't want any disingenuous stuff happening or going on just to get college attendance. Because if you all ain't been going into the communities to spend time with the young men, to empower the young men, don't go into the communities just to get your enrollment up. Because that's when you're on that bullshit, right? Because if there was a steady presence in these communities already, I don't think we'd be having this conversation. That's my first thought. Pat, I'm starting with you. I started PC last time. Start with you, Pat. Like, they're saying black men need more examples, to see more examples in the collegiate realm, and they believe that could be a factor to get more black men in college. What do you think about that thought there?
I've always thought the example argument was kind of shallow the way it's presented. It lacks context, and context means everything. Black men see a bunch of examples all over the place of black men being criminals and deadbeat dads and everything else, and the majority of black boys still don't grow up aspiring to be that.
Right.
So, you know, the relationship they have to these examples matters. And also the context that the examples exist in, that matters. What's more important are the average lay conversations they're having about the black men that they see, and about what those black men are doing and producing out in the world. It's like this conversation about yield. While I understand the significance of yield for the college as a business institution,
right, Right.
As far as the black males are considered, now we're talking about a different risk calculation. Black men frequently make a different risk calculation when it comes to higher education, because there's a lot of potential downsides that come with college education, particularly if you don't finish. And that's where I love to talk about, attainment. Black men and black women are struggling with the attainment number. So if you're saying that our yield number is low, which it is, but then out of those 6-7% that actually do show up for school, less than, what is it? I think it's like less than 20% of those are actually going to graduate with a degree. All of the rest of those people just left school with a bunch of debt. And so black men are making a different calculation, and that calculation is something that everybody's refusing to account for, the different calculations that men and women make as it pertains to their relationship with higher education and their beliefs about the impact of higher education on their lives. But I don't think black men seeing more college graduates is going to move the needle any. Are black men seeing more, black boys seeing more black men in college or going to college or any? I don't think that moves the needle the way that they're saying it does, because that now you're just forcing the image of a college educated black man or somebody that's a college student that is a black male into these boys' lives, and you're not talking about the relationship they have to that image or the narrative around that image, the impact of that image, the respect that that image might get. We got to also understand that a lot of male behavior is driven by access to women. Do these college educated men have access to women the way we're saying they do? I hate to make it that shallow and superficial, but that's kind of where we at.
Well, it depends on the college graduate you're talking about and how much money they have and how fancy they look, and did they get women before they graduated college? All these different things, confidence.
See, that's what you see. I'm gonna cut you off right there because you just hit it. The dudes that were getting the dudes that tend to get women in college were the dudes that were getting women before college.
But that's why I'm coming at it, because as a college graduate and somebody who's consistently in communities, but if I show up in a community that I've never been in before, I can't just show up and start selling what I'm selling without building actual real relationships and becoming a real long-term asset to the community, rather than just showing up and trying to get my mission complete, which in this case,
become a part of the community.
But that's where they've always gone wrong. I'm not gonna say everybody across the board, but I do believe in mass is where they're going wrong, because we've talked about it before. There's a disconnect between the communities and the HBCUs. There's a connection between the people who either went to the school or loved the school, but overall the community, there's a disconnect between the HBCUs and the community.
Well, that goes into what I'm getting at too, though, when I talk about the relationship and the connection.
Right.
When they say black men are not going to college, which black men should we be pushing into college?
Right.
What's that cohort that we're talking about? What socioeconomic status? What neighborhoods? What's their family composition? Who are we targeting to go to college? Because I could tell you right now, growing up the way I grew up, no disrespect to Martin Lamont Hill, but I wouldn't listen to a dude like Martin Lamont Hill.
Me neither. He would have been the square that I wouldn't have listened to. Like, I would have listened to the football player before I listened to Martin Lamont Hill. Because you want to know why? You want to know why I would have listened to the football player? Because growing up, guess who were some of the men who actually spent time with us on a regular basis? The football players.
The men that we admired, the men that we looked up to, the men, which goes back into the very shallow component of this subject that we keep trying to gloss over. A lot of young boys look up to the man that they view as being looked up to or having access to a lot of women. And I hate to keep bringing that up, but that is a very real and a very
right.
it's just a very real part.
And if you think about it, both of us are talking about two components of it too, right? Because you're talking about that image that a good chunk of these young boys, if they don't see that image, they not messing with it. And then on the other end is, well, the ones who don't see that image, even the ones that you have the ones who don't see that image or who don't care about the image, and even the ones who do care about the image. But if you don't fit that image, or just period, you have to build real connections. William Gallimore, Wendell Ashley. Those are two names I can give you. William Gallimore was a drum major for FAMU, went on to be a comedian. Wendell Ashley was a football player at FAMU. They actually took the time out to spend time on a regular basis with me and my brother. I liked FAMU and I liked HBCUs because some of the people actually spent real time. They used to take me and my brother out, like just do things and hang out with us, just off the strength.
And I'm gonna say this, and then I'm gonna land my plane because PC, I'm sure, is gonna cook up. But both of the people you just mentioned are entertainers. And so I think that's another aspect of it, right? We're talking about a bunch of different aspects of something that is more complex and nuanced than we're giving it credit for.
Right.
The extrovert is the person that is going to go out and do the work to become a part of the community, and they're going to make the inroads with the kids. And even the introvert that can become extroverted in moments, but largely you're looking at the cool person going out but these people are the ones, these are not the people that we're hoping to create when we say we need Black men to go to college.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going back into the intention of the statement because, again,
we said it last week. We know what type of men that they talking about.
I'm not going to let the needle move away from that. This is not about Black men not going to college. This is about a specific group of Black men that women want, not being on the level that women want them on. And I'm not going to move off that block. Because that's what this conversation is.
Yeah.
So with that, I'll land.
That's definitely a huge component of this. PC, Black men, they saying Black men that are not in the colleges, Black men are not going to colleges, Black men in low income areas or wherever. But we know they're talking about a lot of these low income areas, these single mother areas. They're saying Black men need more examples. What say you, my brother?
I mean, I think Pat pretty much broke that part, pretty much rested that, you know what I'm saying? That part is deaded, you know what I'm saying? In regards to the examples piece. And I think that's a real weak approach to, it's really like, when I think about people saying stuff like that, it's lazy. If you want more Black boys to get to the point where they're even interested in college, then that starts at the prep stage early on in life. You have to have feeder programs. You have to have a pipeline that you generate.
You mean like the school to prison pipeline? But
yeah, but the opposite, yeah.
Right. But that's intentional.
We know that both of them are. So the one that is and the lack thereof of the other. Mm-hmm. I mean, look at the philanthropists that they're looking to. They're looking to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Mm-hmm. Well, if you want to talk about HBCUs, they've been based on white sympathy. And when you base your existence on getting your funds from, as Malcolm would say, the enemies of your people, would it be prudent for them to put together programs that would put males in position to come to their campuses to become the men that would compete with their sons?
Right.
You know, so what about all of these, you know, women that claim to be carrying the water for the community? What programs, what, like, you know, since they're the majority of the alum, well, why aren't they then becoming boosters of their colleges and to the point where they reach back into the communities to develop these boys? Because when you look at it, every time there's an opportunity to put together an all-boys school and all-male school, so they'll be focused on their academics, the first thing that happens is a group of women, mothers, but specifically, but a group of women, many don't even have sons, many don't even have daughters, talking about, well, what about the girls?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of the biggest proponents for My Brother's Keepers were Black women, because they said that it was chauvinistic and misogynist to not include the girls in the initiative. So you look at Goldman Sachs, and we spoke about it last week. They put up $10 billion to create Black female entrepreneurs. Well, if you consistently have these programs, at what point do the Black women in these programs? At what point do the Black women in these programs say, let's put something together for our sons? And specifically, since marriage doesn't necessarily constitute what's considered a family in the Black community anymore. You ask most people what the family is, and specifically ask the women, they say, well, the mother and her children are the Black family in the community. So the fathers have been excluded from that particular dynamic. Now, we can, I don't even feel like doing the back and forth as to why the fathers aren't there. But you know, we can, but for the bottom line is they're not there.
What you hit on something though, PC, and it's real and it has an effect. There are plenty initiatives specifically for women and specifically for Black women, plenty initiatives. But if there's an initiative that's specifically for Black men or men, they have a problem with that. But you want more Black men in college, but initiatives that could be created for Black men to help them get to college, everybody has a problem with it when they're not included, but they can exclude everybody.
Well, one of the things that you have to look at is the constitution of the Black community, which is matriarchal. We always talk about that. So the design of the community is, no matter what happens, you have to keep lifting the women above the men. The men have to always be under the woman. So the woman typically want the males to do better, but that's because it helps her rise in status, helps her rise in comfortability and lifestyle and so forth. So it becomes problematic because there's no, if I took a paddle and I hit you in the knee like every 2 weeks as a child, and by the time you got, and I'm talking about you start off at preschool, and I pluck you in the knee, right? Over time, you're going to develop some physical problems with that knee. And I hit that same knee, same spot, maybe a different part. Sometimes I teeter-tatter the leg sometimes, but I'm aiming at your legs, right? Are you going to aspire to be a track star by the time you graduate from that process? Or are your legs going to be too damaged for you to even consider?
You can aspire all you want, but your knees are damaged, so you're not even going to be eligible.
Right. And you're going to be dissuaded because every step you take is going to be dealing with some type of pain. Well, that's the experience of Black boys. Black boys are treated, first of all, Black boys are suspended in preschool at a rate of 6 times more than their white counterparts. All right. That's just one. 2, Black boys are more likely to be sent to remedial programs that will retard their learning process, won't give them the proper academic tutelage and skills to actually even succeed on college campuses.
Right.
Forget college campuses. Most of them can't read past a fourth grade reading level.
Right.
And I know because I work with a lot of, with a lot of brothers who struggled with that. And to be fair, it's not just the boys, because for 11 years, 80% of the students I taught were Black women. And when I talked about having to reteach grammar, punctuation, and all this other stuff, and proper sentence context and proper ways to draft a journal or an essay, well, who do you think I was talking about? So it's in the Black community, but there's less likely for people to show grace to these young brothers coming up. Now, we talked about the pipeline and the philanthropist. So Pat brought up a great point. The guys that get the girls in college, which is the primary motivator, right?
To go to college, yes.
Not just go to college, but to succeed. I mean, there was a whole movie craze in the 80s called Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah, but go
ahead, Joe. I'm sorry.
We also see it in the realm where you see a lot of Black men in athletics. Like, we all know about the favors that they get the girls to do to get dudes in the college, because we've heard plenty of athletes be like, man, I chose this school because these girls,
he got game,
gave me a whole lot of mouth handshakes.
He got game. How did they recruit him?
Mouth handshakes, right?
Bruh. What they call them, mouth hugs. But
there you go.
I mean, down there they might call them mouth handshakes. Up here they call them mouth hugs. But I want to go back to Revenge of the Nerds for a second, because those are the guys that the women overlook, right? But these are the ones that actually become the more successful. So when we talk about, well, there's Black males in administration, well, why do you think they're there? They obsess over the power because that power dynamic gives them the impression that it'll improve their status with women. And trust me, I see it every day. I see the swag that certain men on campus with high titles and positions have when they walk in the room, and the female responds to it. Yep. And other dudes who aspire to do that see that, right? But they got to get there first. And those are not the guys that are the most chosen. The guys who were chosen, most of them don't even fucking go to college. When I was in college,
we know that.
Well, hold on, Joe. I gotta get this point through. When I was in college in 1992, and I went to Bloomsburg University. Now, me personally, I ain't had no problem, but I had a mouthpiece on me, and I was from North Philly. That carried a lot of weight. But there were some other brothers who they were just cool dudes. They were good dudes, good brothers. But the chicks ain't want them. They called them corny.
Yes.
They called them played out.
Yes.
They called them dorks, all kinds of names you can call them back then. They were undesirables until they met a white girl on campus. And that happened a lot.
Bruh.
And then, girls would turn their nose up because, okay, this dude is 3-4 years in. He's about to graduate. But the guy she liked is sitting in somebody's apartment smoking weed all day. Or he's a drug dealer.
What?
Like, you know what I'm saying? And he never even, he's up there with us, but he didn't go to school.
Yeah, he was just always around and on campus and stuff, and he wore a backpack to blend in.
But I mean, no, I'm just telling you, that happened in high school too.
I know. Yeah.
So if the point I'm trying to make is, and women have this new thing now, we in this concept of feminism, that they're going to play in their 20s. They'll still say stuff like that. I still got time before I settle down. And then magically they're going to want those guys that they overlooked when they're in their most fertile years, most attractive years, best childbearing years. They overlooked them to have fun, possibly had too much fun to end up with a few children and STIs on the way. and debilitating situations, traumatic situations, by the time they get to their 30s, those guys don't want them.
Well, I mean,
now we're talking about guys not going to school, right?
Right.
So,
but that's the frustration though, because once again, these are the gentlemen, because still in connection with what I was saying with Pat, these are the gentlemen, these are the young men who they are saying we need to pour into these, because these are the ones who need examples.
But Joe, the point I'm trying to make is all the examples, but they say they need examples. Like these two on the screen. You know,
right, exactly.
Sean Harper,
exactly.
And Mark, like, you know,
exactly.
But what does examples do to change the dynamics?
It's not going to change the dynamics, because if this is the culture that we're going to continue to move forward with, this how we're going to continue to move. You're not going to get these young men in these spaces with these women, especially if these women ain't these young men, the men they want ain't trying to be in these spaces, and the men that's in these spaces they not messing with. And everybody knows it, unless you're an athlete, a baller, D-boy, whatever. Everybody knows it. It's not a secret.
To quickly address, because I know we went all over the place, but to quickly address the point where he was talking about they're not able to maintain, like they get the acceptance, but the students don't come to the schools or whatever. Maybe, just maybe, other places are offering these students a better deal than HBCUs. Maybe, just maybe, you know, these young men that are choosing to go other places too are actually doing it based on the substance and not the sizzle. You know, there's HBCUs around Philly. They had trouble with keeping the furnace hot in hot water for a whole semester in the winter a couple times, and struggle with their certification every year to be seen as a legitimate collegiate institution. So let's give the young brother some credit. In addition to that, let's not pretend like the world ain't hard on black males and black men, and the world don't put black, like they talk about this like it's an academic debate. It ain't academic debate. This is an academic war, academic warfare. But it's like every other aspect of us in America. Everything is warfare.
Well, it's not genuine. It's not genuine.
Well, the conversation ain't genuine.
Right. So how the hell you expect black men to want to be in a place where the people who are supposed to be getting them there ain't coming there off of genuine stances? They're literally just trying, well, we're HBCU and we need to get our enrollment up. The black men that you're going after, they have to have a good reason to go. And like you talked about, resources, and Pat, you can jump back in here too. Talk about resources, infrastructure, all that lacking. Say, look, FAMU spoiled me. And I'll say it, FAMU spoiled me. I didn't know other HBCUs was hurting like that, because I hadn't seen them like that. I see FAMU every day. And yes, we compare FAMU to the PWI. So, and we know FAMU ain't got much, but dang, all the other HBCUs got significantly less than FAMU, and FAMU ain't got much. It blew my mind the first time I saw Morehouse. I was like, this it? But see, HBCUs are trying to live off of their historical precedents. But these young kids don't care nothing about that.
Well, but that's part of the disconnect, right? HBCUs are run by a bunch of old black folk trying to communicate with young black folk in a language that young black folk don't understand or even care to learn.
Right.
They don't care about precedent. They don't care about historical accolades. They don't care about none of that. They're forward looking. Most of them don't even know how to turn around and look behind them. What is going to, and this goes back into that risk reward calculation. How is going to your school going to benefit me? And that is the very
Right.
simple question.
That's the bottom line.
That they're not, that they keep avoiding answering. If I'm a young dude with status and swag, and I keep harping on this, and I know people don't believe that it's really that shallow out here for teenagers.
But it is.
It really is. I work with them all the time, all day, every day. PC works with their older variants.
I'm on the college campuses
Yeah,
all the time. It matters.
It matters. So if I'm already a young dude that's swagged out and can pull, you can't convince me to take the risk that is college to take on. Because one thing that these young brothers do understand is debt. They know that it's going to cost a lot of money to go to school, and a lot of them know they don't have it. So it's not like they're just like making this calculation in a vacuum.
Well,
they understand that there's a risk here. So I'm gonna go into college for what? Like I want to be a rapper. I want to be a painter. I want to be a creative, right? I don't need to go to school for that. I want to start my own business. I don't need to go to school for that. I want to do this with marketing. I don't need to. Everything they want to do, they don't need to go to school for. The only thing that would drive them to school is potential free education from an academic scholarship or an athletic scholarship, or the encouragement of a lot of women that they think are beautiful.
Well, let me ask this question, because you're completely correct. Like seeing all the women at FAMU, hey, that helped me stay. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I ain't gonna lie to y'all, bruh. I used to go to class because I knew we had fine chicks in class, like the fine, because I didn't want to go to college. The only reason I knew college was probably be a part of my path, because coming out of high school, I wanted to play football. But outside of that, I didn't want to go to college. So it was the women, and it was the potential to play football that actually made me go to college. And I didn't have other plan. So I went to college, but it was when football wasn't there, it was the girls. I used to go to class and I used to hang out and I used to be at school because the girls was there. And then, I got tired of being there, and I was like, well, let me go ahead and graduate, get up out of here. But my question for you all, and starting with you, PC, what made you go to college?
Wow. Because I didn't start off wanting to go to college.
Right.
And people might not believe this part, but man, I used to hooky, cut school. I had several years where I missed over 100 days from school in high school. If you go back to junior high, and we talking about maybe 4 years straight. But I could, I did the bare minimum to get by because the work wasn't challenging. I think I had a tragic situation that took place where a cousin of mine was killed in a car accident. And at that point, I was in 11th grade and I was ready to give up on school, period. But my educators, my teachers reached out to me and they convinced me to come back to school. And once they convinced me to come back to school, the school counselors actually, convinced me that college would be an alternative. Now, I only applied to 2 colleges now.
Mm-hmm.
I applied to the one that I'm working at now, Community College of Philadelphia, and I applied to Bloomsburg University. I got accepted at both, and I chose to go away to school to Bloomsburg in north central Pennsylvania, up in the Pocono Mountains. And but my choice prior to that was to join my mother, because my mother was making decent money working that time at Jefferson Hospital. So back then, making $10, $12 an hour was a big deal in the 90s. Mm-hmm. People don't understand that now. But you can live. Back then, gas was 99 cents a gallon. You know what I'm saying? But my motivation to go to school is because I was told a story. And the story was that when my cousin died, that I had to live for both of us. So that was one of the things that inspired me to go to college. But everybody didn't share that particular story, and people, and I'm not the only person that lost somebody. There's a lot of people that we went to school with that lost people. It was the height of the crack cocaine era. But I think another thing too is there was a man who not only followed us from the 9th grade to I went to Gillespie Junior High. Then I was the last graduating class of the Gillespie Junior High before it became a middle school. But we had some teachers that transferred to Simon Gratz, where I eventually graduated from. And one of them was a Spanish teacher. He taught Spanish. He wasn't Spanish, but his name was Mike Robinson. And I owe Mike a lot because Mike was the one Black male figure that actually invested time and energy into me. And so when they talk about the examples, my example was somebody that was already there. My example it wasn't even an example. It was more so somebody who basically talked to me like I was a man.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked to me as a man. And, you know, we would have conversations about what my future would look like. So, but it wasn't nothing new from people from my school to go to college. I was in a college track program too. You know, I was in the first charter program, one of the first charter programs in the country. So there was a lot of things pushing and pulling me towards that. Now, in my school, Simon Gratz, there were 3 other charter programs. Some of the other charter programs were pushing towards students towards the skilled laborer jobs. You know, then there was some that was basically you just come here to get the hell out. You know, you come here and graduate. I was in one called Crossroads that was specifically designed to push us in a new direction where the majority of the people I graduated with was pushed into, you know, the collegiate, you know, will push to go to college. And they would always bring us back to talk to the future seniors and juniors and try to inspire them. You know, one of the guys I went to high school with was he had an all right basketball career. He's a brother by the name of Rasheed Wallace.
Okay,
you know?
okay.
And so we would all come back and share our experiences, and that would be sort of like the pipeline I was talking about, you know. But unfortunately, that wasn't put together by a group of Black educators. In fact, the only Black educator amongst them was the person I just talked about, was Mike Robinson. So, and that's not to throw shade at the other, because I think they were all concerned in our education. But the push was basically for us to not get murdered at that particular time, because that's how high crime rate was in Philly back in the early 90s. So, you know, long story short.
Pat, what made you go to college, man?
I was older, so I had shifted into a new phase in my life, because originally, like y'all, I didn't want to go to college coming out of high school. And I had everybody and their mama telling me to go to college.
Yep.
Patrick, you're smart enough, you're capable, you can blah, 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 you blah, blah, blah. I don't need college for what I want to do. And even then, when I determined that I did need college, I was still like, well, maybe there's a way I could do it without going to college. But at the end of the day, ultimately, I decided that I wanted to do work in the mental health field. And the work I wanted to do required me to go to college to be able to get the licensing and credentialing that I would need. So I went to college, and I was so distraught by the college process that I left college. Like, I got my degree, but I needed to go back for more. But I was like, nah, I'm done with college. And so I ended up going back not too long afterwards. to get a PhD, and then that process I was like, yeah, and I was done. I was done again. And so I'm just now again starting to, not just now, but 4 or 5 years, about 3 or 4 years ago now, I re-enrolled in college to finish getting the credentials. But all of that was focused on, all right, this is my purpose in life. So now I have a different motivator, a different driver. But it wouldn't be fair for me as a 40-year-old man to look at an 18-year-old man and say, you need to process life events like I do.
Yeah, that's
like
not
you
gonna
don't
work.
need to be focused on women. You need to be focused on your mission. Yeah, I can say that, but I know at 18, I know what he's focused on. And he might be more focused on his mission than on women, but he's still focused on women at 18. Like that's the driver. So, the guys that, and I've met a handful of 18, 19, 20-year-olds in college that don't think like this, but they are few and far in between. Even the kids that are the quote unquote nerds and lames that are in college, they're in college with some idea of a future version of themselves that's going to be able to get women.
Well, I mean, yeah. Okay, so PC had a purpose of good. It seemed like y'all had more of a purpose of going to college than I did. Because honestly, like I always, like I said last week, I never saw myself not being able to go to college and complete college, because I grew up in Tallahassee and it was always pushed, go to college, you're gonna go to college. All right. But by the time high school come around, I don't want to do this school thing at all. I don't even want to go to college, but I don't know what else to do. And I didn't have a real purpose in college. So I literally meandered through college for like 3.5 years until I was scrolling through the site, through the catalog of different majors and stuff, and seeing what I was trying to choose something, because I was on like my third major. And so I came across the psychology major, and I was like, hey, I'm halfway done with this. And I loved, my favorite classes at that time were my psychology classes. And when you, before you get into the major part. So I was like, well, let me do the psychology thing. Now, it was beneficial as far as helping me be able to create this platform. It was instrumental in helping to set the foundation for me to be able to be what I am now, as far as Joseph Ward with On the Shoulders of Giants. But I didn't even, I was just there because I wouldn't go sell no drugs. I wouldn't go be in the street. I wasn't gonna do none of these other things. And then they told us that if you don't go to college, you won't go be nothing. So I was like, well, I don't want to go, but I don't want to be nothing anyway. But I didn't really understand trade school options and all these other options, or even entrepreneur route. I wasn't even prepared for none of that stuff. I was just like, well, this is what you're supposed to do, so let's just do it. And you wonder why enrollment is low. If there are more stories like mine, enrollment is going to be low for Black men. Black men need a reason to go to college other than the college want to boost their enrollment. What are Black men going to get? Like you all said, what are Black men are going to get out of going to college? And they have to be able to see it, because we all know that college can be very beneficial if you go. Nobody's denying that. But how do you sell that to Black teenagers who can't see that far? Well, and if you're standing there in Mark Lamont Hill.
Well, I think, first of all, we need to shout out the Black manosphere, because I think that's one of the reasons we even having this conversation. If you think about all the impetus now that's being put on Black men, for a long time, Black males were the ignored aspect of American society. We basically were only spoken of when it came to violence and crime and all the different ways that can demonize, our public image. So you even go back to the whole notion of the past election. How can we get more Black votes? How can we get more Black men to the polls? And the thing that nobody's asking is, what do black men want?
Right.
And how do we serve them?
Right.
And so if you're talking about, so it's the same conversation, we're just shifting, parameters here. And we're now talking about a different category. How do you get more black males into college? Well, and it goes to where we started off with, and y'all spoke on earlier. What's the reward for black men going to college? And like, I'll even be further. Do you say, well, we need more black teachers? Well, it's different now not just being a black male teacher.
on it.
It's different being a male teacher.
Speak on it.
In high schools and education and so forth. We have to walk on such eggshells nowadays with prerogative situations. There's always somebody that's waiting to be offended. People, when I was teaching, and I was talking strictly based on historical context, in many cases, when I taught, there were black students, primarily black females, who would go to the faculty board at the college I was teaching at and complain about me being too racist in my classroom because I was speaking about I was speaking historically from a lens of that was black centered, African centered. So it was always somebody who was in a hurry to be offended by something we did. And then we would always be crunched in the position because there's so few of us in academia. So you take that to the high schools, and I even taught in the high schools. I even did a half a year in the middle school prior to coming to CCP. And the thing I found to be interesting was how often the female teachers would come into the classroom while I'm in mid-lesson and rudely interrupt me to either make an announcement or to whatever reason. But I'm in mid-lesson, I'm teaching. And they would do something abruptly to show their disdain or lack of respect for the fact that I was actually teaching in the classroom, and sort of like in an effort to assert themselves as the HNIC in that particular situation. And it happened all the time, to the point where I even pulled one woman to the side. I'm like, man, why are you doing this? What are you talking about? And it got to the point where I said, you know what? It'd be best if I didn't even address you. So I had to literally teach over her while she came into the classroom. I was teaching. And it was one in particular, but it was more than just one there that did it. You know what I'm saying? So the point I'm trying to make is you can't say you want something with your words, but your actions say you want something totally different. You can't say you want to present or create more positions or more a solution to the problem of black males not aspiring to go to college when you don't create a situation that makes it even applicable to them. When you don't create, like we said earlier, the pipeline, when it's uninterrupted, where it's purposeful, just like the pipeline of prisons. We need the pipeline to prep. Mm-hmm. And if that's not there, then what you're going to get is the same results over and over again. And it can't be, I want them to lead, but from the back. You got to show black males. And what I've often saw was other teachers who were full-time teachers and staff, because I was only on a part-time basis. What I saw was how the little girls were able to disrespect even the male teachers, and the male teachers felt powerless to even address them accordingly. It happened so much that one tried it with me. A few of them tried it with me, but one really, excuse me, getting hype here. One really tried it with me. And it was the tiniest, littlest girl.
You told us.
Well, but she raised her eyes from my feet to my face and looked me in my face and said, "Look here." And before she can get another word, I said, little girl, who you think you're talking to? And it sort of hit her with a reset. I had to like hit her with the default reset. Like, you're going to show me some respect in here. But they wouldn't feel so comfortable disrespecting the men. Which, if I'm a young boy in the classroom watching this, why do I want to grow up and be him? Why do I want to grow up and be him?
Well, I'm looking at something now, and it's saying that black male professors are underrepresented at HBCUs. Even black male teachers across the board are underrepresented. So you want black male students to be in a place where even the black male educators aren't welcomed. Well,
the black male balls are not welcome.
Think about that.
Black men who are masculine, I'm saying a masculine frame, are not welcome in these places. And you would be surprised at how it's not just the women who want them out of there. You also have the adjacent men who want them, adjacent males who want them out of there. You also have, it's just that brother, when he goes into it, if he can't find another brother to latch on to, that brother is going to walk a solitary walk on those campuses and in those academic institutions. And like Pat was looking up before, we talked about another situation before. Reddit is full. Tens of thousands of Reddit posts are dedicated to men talking about their experiences in these types of environments.
Dr. Tia Johnson talks about his experiences in those environments. But once again, if the black male educators are being ran out, they're walking on eggshells, they can't be black men in these environments. Why would the young black men want to be in these environments? Plus, they don't see any incentive outside of specific fields, but those are for the black men who have had the parents in the community and the people to help spur them forward. But what about the ones who not? If I'm not an athlete, if my parents, the community around me didn't help me to have good grades and a way to get into college, because you still got to have some money to go to college, even if you have good grades. But let's say my grades are mediocre and my family don't have money. What's the point of them coming down to my community and talking to me about college? And you can't pay for it. You're not going to pay for it. And then you're going to tell me, well, you need to do this, take out loans. And now you want me to go in debt to go to college, all these different things. That's not attractive. Like my dad had in Florida, we had Florida prepaid college tuition. So my dad set aside it's 4 of us, 4 boys, all 4 of us. My dad paid for all of our college out of his pocket, saving up over the years. So that's how we were able to go to college. If my dad hadn't done that, I wouldn't have been able to pay for college. So I was lucky in that aspect. But what about the folk who don't have that? And you're selling me off the fact that, hey, you can have a bright future. Right. But can you help set me up for this bright future rather than just setting me up to help fulfill enrollment numbers?
Well,
I'm just saying, HBCU people.
It's like this, right? Your whole life, you're told at a certain age, if you live long enough, because that's another thing we don't talk about. As a matter of fact, if you got a minute, I just want to go through this.
Do you think?
So when I was a junior in undergrad, a cousin of mine was murdered. Ironically, on the same day that his older brother, the one that died in a car accident, it was on his birthday, on Thanksgiving, right? Which is crazy because 2 of the brothers died on each other's birthdays. But one of the things that I took from that is, I wanted to put together a program that was geared towards dealing with violence in the Black community. In fact, I did my first documentary. It was thing I did in college called The Problems with Black and Latino Males, right? But in the process of doing the research for that, I came up with a workshop called What About Us? And the first salvo of the workshop was it was just describing my morning on my way to school. I lived 2 blocks from my school, from Simon Grass High School. Lived 2 blocks, literally 3 blocks. All right. Into my block and 2 more blocks. And so what I would see, you walk out the house and you see crack vials littered on the streets, all up and down. You're walking, you're hearing the crunch of empty crack vials under your feet. You walk past yellow tape. Somebody got deleted that night. Still see the blood on the sidewalk some days. You walk a little further down to the spot we call the water rights den. And all the neighborhood, tough guys, whatever you want to call them, were out there parlaying, shooting dice. You got to walk through that. You got to walk through cats that's from different neighborhoods that might be warring with each other. And you do that just to get to the front door. And then you might have the custodians, treat you like an inmate in prison when you walk through the door. And this is prior to the whole concept of metal detectors. So you might be sitting in the classroom with somebody that got a 32 tucked in their waist in the classroom. You know what I'm saying? And not to mention, if it's wintertime and you're without electricity or you're without gas in the wintertime, which sometimes we had to go without gas, right? Gas heat. We had to heat up water in the mornings before getting to school. Now, to get washed up and all that good stuff, right? Bird bath. I bring that up, man, because nobody really takes into account all the different things you have to do just to get to the fucking building. And then the boys had to deal with something different because other than cat calls, nobody harassed the girls. But the boys, you might have gotten to a big ass fight before you got into school. We saw shootouts across the street from school. This shit, a lot of people didn't go to the lunchroom.
Oh.
Because you might get jumped in the lunchroom. Hey. Or if your neighborhood got into a fight and you didn't get involved, now you got a bigger fucking problem.
Everybody couldn't Pat know about that too. Everybody couldn't go to the lunchroom.
Right. So when you think about the experiences we did, and then you get into the classrooms, and the teachers didn't really want to teach. Not all of them, but some of the teachers didn't really want to teach. And they had a lackadaisical attitude about your aptitude in terms of what it was that you're supposed to get from their class. For some teachers, it was literally about a job that gave them short days and long summers off. It wasn't a situation where we were prepared to succeed.
Right.
We were there to survive.
So how do you expect me to put college at the forefront, to prioritize college when we're not even prepared to succeed where we are?
Yeah.
I don't get it. I don't get it. This is more than about enrollment numbers. This is more than about HBCUs looking good.
But there's the rub though, Joe, because whenever you make that argument that is meant to illustrate the challenges that Black men face, Black women who, again, I'm going to point out, this whole argument, this whole discussion is based off increasing the utility of black men for black women. It's not about improving black men, but they always say we grew up in the same households, experiencing the same traumas, and we still managed to go to school. So all we hear from y'all is excuses.
Hey, well, what's y'all excuse for not out earning us then? Because all we hear is excuse. Because we grew up in the same household, we grew up in all this, and we chose what we chose. And we could be here all day going tit for tat with that. Because that's futile.
That's not a tit for tat thing though. Because what Pat just brought up is something I've been hearing.
Right.
And something we've been hearing. But if you're the brother and you have a sister, her role is to walk to school. Your role is to make sure she's safe getting to school. That's a whole different dynamic, being the shield. If you know there's some shit outside your house, and yes, the women, the girls, they got mouths, but the fellas was expected to go handle the shit.
Right.
Like if you know, and academically speaking, the girls are given a higher plateau from which to climb academically. They were expected to be smart. For them to be smart, it didn't get their ass kicked. For them to be smart, it didn't get them picked on in their neighborhoods. You know what I'm saying? They were looked at as, oh, she's smart, boom, 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 good look, good. A guy, dudes, if you were too smart and too nerdy,
you got harassed.
The cats that couldn't read was fucking with you the whole class.
You got harassed.
I literally had to fight motherfuckers because
you at your F limit.
Oh yeah.
you made the hour mark though. You made the hour mark.
Yeah, right. But I literally had to fight cats and fight off cats because I was a smart guy in school. Now I wasn't. No, once they seen you would fight back, then it's kind of like, all right. But you had to get to that point. Girls ain't have to do all that.
And because that's a good point. The other point I think is I keep going back to the Manahan report that spoke to how black women were being encouraged culturally to go to school and black men were not. We act like just because we are in the same household, we're experiencing the same events in the same way. And that's just not true. The component about the being too smart is black. Look, I'm ashamed to admit it now, but when I was in elementary school and middle school, I dumped myself down on purpose.
It didn't get you no girls.
Right. I used to have teachers pleading with me and my mom. Like, why doesn't he do the work? He can do the work. Why doesn't he do it? I ain't had the courage then to tell them, because if I make good grades and do the work, I ain't gonna get no girls.
And once again, we know a lot of people viewing this might think that's crazy, that's futile, that's some ignorant stuff what we're talking about. But we remember being young men.
And we work with young men now that are still echoing the same sentiments.
Yes, we're in our communities. I know some of y'all in the comments like to come in. Y'all always talking. What are y'all doing in real life? I mean, y'all in the comments talking, but we're actually in our communities for real, really talking to the youth. And yes, it matters.
You know, all right, you say I was at my limit, so I'm not going to say what I was going to say. But listen, man, people can only criticize you through the lens of their own experiences. That's why, you know, when people start calling you armchair revolutionaries and, well, you need to get out there and get off of YouTube and get out there. Fam, listen, man, I'm tired of telling y'all all the things we do, this, that, and the other. All I got to do is go to the corner of my block and holler at the young boys. And I done did more in that particular conversation than you've done in a lifetime because y'all scared of them. So, and you know what I'm saying? We are seen as, listen, and I wasn't even going to bring this up. Pat, I know you're probably going to be mad, but I'm going to bring this up. There was a situation that happened on Pat's block a few days ago. Now, Pat just moved in this community about the beginning of this year, right?
No, it's been about a year, close to it, but yeah, not quite a year.
Right. Already with a big ass melee taking place out in front of his house, all the kids knock on his door to come outside to address it. And not only is he addressing the melee between two children that eventually became two families that eventually became two gun-toting families, they all respected him. So all of y'all shut the fuck up when it comes to what we don't do out here in these streets. My bad, Joe. Write it down.
That was staying in there. We made this part staying in there.
Oh, caught me off guard with that one.
Hey,
I get tired of that, man. It's like I get tired of that part, man. Listen, love the fact that people are engaged. I love the fact that people watch. Joe does a tremendous job putting these programs together. You know, I think we do our fair share input, but we didn't just get here. Our life experiences and the things we still do. We have given up so much blood and tears, so many blood and tears to a community that is unresponsive to our sacrifices, to the point where if one of us trips and fall, that same community that said we didn't do it, that we're not doing enough, will ridicule us for tripping and falling while we're on our way to helping them do some more. It is way past time. Y'all give these cats that are out here charlatans, y'all actually sending them bukus of y'all hard-earned cash. Y'all actually out here supporting and promoting their work, but they ain't doing. And I don't even like to get to the point where I'm saying what they're not doing, because I really don't know behind the scenes what they're doing, but I know what we're doing, and I know what we've done, and we don't talk about none of the work we've done because we're too busy doing it.
I let my community brag for me. So
exactly. So, but because I am one that will read the comments.
I do too. I be reading the comments. I be seeing what y'all be saying. Every now and then, I'm like, you get off of YouTube and do something about it. So do you. You in the comments, stop commenting and go do something.
I don't read the comments.
Pat don't read.
It's my channel, so you know I'll be reading the comments.
But I do, because I watch the show. I watch it when it comes back on, and I'm looking at the live comments. I'm looking at the posted comments, and I'm like, y'all don't have a clue. And for many of y'all that are out here, we have been all over the country. We ain't seen none of y'all. So we ain't seen none of y'all.
I tell you what,
heard of y'all.
Tell you what. Back on what you saying, I tell you what, we've been. Despite everything we just said, I bet you we've been very instrumental and more instrumental than most, than helping and aiding young Black men to go to college. I've helped young Black men pay for stuff out of my pocket.
I'm at the Center for Male Engagement. It was the first program in the entire country strictly dedicated to helping young Black males not only get into college, but be retained and move forward to academic success, give them a holistic academic experience, as well as making sure they graduate and move on to 4-year colleges and universities or certification programs. We have a very high success track rate, and so forth. And that's just the work I'm doing. We do in our places of work. We've chosen places of work to put us in that position to do things very underpaid, overly worked, but we don't give a damn because that's what we choose to do.
Hey, look.
It was bubbling up, man.
But it's like, all in all, we can sit here and talk about all the pageantry, all the theatrics, the comparisons, all these things. There are root causes to everything, and until we get to the root cause, till you want to understand the root cause, because like you said, they don't ask Black men what we want. They just tell us what we want and get mad that we don't want it. How is that working out for you? Not well at all. So there's a disconnect. Look, until Black men really see that these people coming from these academic institutions really care about them and have something actually beneficial for them and not just selling them something to fit a quota, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You have to be genuine. You have to, first of all, you have to be involved in these young men's life well before they get to high school. You want them to go to your college, but you start talking to him when he's a junior or a senior. What about when he was in the 4th, 5th grade or the 3rd grade? You know what I'm saying? Like, I named the 2 names I named. I named Wendell Ashland and William Gilmore for a reason, because they didn't just show up out of the blue at the last minute. We knew these gentlemen when we were in elementary school. And by the time we got to middle school and college, they were still around and still helping us and still instrumental. And so it's like, you got to start early. You want more black men in these places, start early. Be genuine, be consistent. They need to see the collegiate people more than they see the drug dealers and the athletes in their community. That means y'all need to be spending time hanging out in the community where the kids at. Stop being scared. If you don't like the environment, hey, do what you got to do to invest and help the environment change. You get your little school buddies together and help the environment change. But you have to truly invest in young black men, because we can see the fakeness. We can see the bull, and we're not falling for it. Black men want substance, not bullshit. We want real results, not smoking screens, right? You can't just tell us it look good or whatever. No. You got to prove it to me it look good. Because that's how we rock. That's how men operate. And if you don't like it, don't care, because that's just how men operate. And if you don't like it, hey, you part of the problem, because look at the outcomes. If you want better outcomes, change. All right. So that's how that is. FatLifeStation.com. If you're not listening to FatLifeStation.com, you ain't black. You don't like black people. Joe Biden told me to tell you that too. If you ain't listening to FatLifeStation.com, you don't like black people. If you don't go to thepax.org, you still don't like black people. You know what I'm saying? You don't like black people and you don't like mixed people. I'm just throw mixed race people in too. And if you don't go to fatlifestation.com, thepax.org, and ontheshoulders1.com, then you just are overall racist and you hate everybody except Hawaiians. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how it goes. So if you don't like this video, you ain't black. Make sure you like this video, hit that like button, and be black. Like, comment, subscribe, share, support. You know, the links to support is in the description. But hey, we got to wake up, get our heads out of our asses, and stop expecting stuff to happen with no real work, with no real substance. Hey, part 2, y'all asked for it. We here. I know we ain't running the clip a lot, but hey, we want to talk. So here we are. That's why it's our channel, so we can talk. There it is. Bye.